You've been looking at ancient history of people, but your personal background, how you sought out your roots in Estonia, that's also an emotional story.
It is a very emotional story. You know, because of my name, Matisoo being clearly an Estonian name, a specifically chosen Estonian name from Matisson to Matisoo. You know, it was being Estonian was always very much a part of my life. And, you know, in terms of my DNA, it's very frustrating for me that my mitochondrial DNA from my mother is not Estonian, and I don't have a Y chromosome with which to track my Estonian heritage. So I'm dependent on my brother and my father to track the Estonian side of history. But I think Estonians, you know, I think my father expected that there would be unique Estonian genetic markers, and so I think it was the work of the Willems lab that showed that, you know, despite the linguistic uniqueness and national character of Estonians, that in terms of the DNA evidence that there are no unique Estonian markers. I think my father was disappointed in hearing that, but again, you know, we're all interrelated, we're all connected, and so linguistic evidence can be giving us one side of the story that the DNA evidence kind of provides a different side of the story. So.
You actually were the first from your family to sort of make contact again with relatives in Estonia. How did that happen? When I finished university, my undergraduate degree, I decided I wanted to go do some traveling around Europe and do some field work, some archaeology in France. But before I went to work, I was traveling, and I really wanted to see if I could go to Estonia. And it was 1986, so still Soviet occupied, and so I just began the process of going through Intourist and trying to see if it would be possible, and not necessarily expecting that I could go. But it turned out that I got my visas, and so I went, and I had written some letters to a cousin who had once written to me and said that I was coming, but I hadn't heard back from the family by the time I left. And so when I arrived in Tallinn from Helsinki, I didn't expect necessarily to meet the family, but the word had gotten around and the whole family was there to meet me, and it was a very, very emotional situation for me to step off the boat and have the family step forward and see that connection, that family connection, to recognize, and that they recognize the family connection. We'd never met, I'd never seen photographs, but for me it was a very strong feeling of these are my people, this is my heritage, and this is where I belong in some way. So it was pretty emotional, and we've maintained contact since then, and my parents have now gone back several times, and I've been able to take my daughter back to Estonia to meet the family, to see where my father was born and where he grew up, and to meet these cousins and an extended family. And so yeah, it's been a very fulfilling and important kind of personal reconnection for me as well, and connecting to my own roots and not just, you know, the Pacific. With your unusual family name, how often do you get asked about this?
Always. People say, what kind of name is that? They don't. What's very funny is that that many people, because I work in the Pacific, will see the name and they think that it's Matisoo, which sounds very Samoan, and they think it's a Samoan name. And when I arrive and they look at me and they say, you don't look Samoan, and then I explain that no, it's Estonian, and often that requires explaining where Estonia is and so forth. But yeah, I've always been, you know, it is an unusual name. People don't know how to pronounce it, and never know how to spell it. And so it often, again, it's always been this very strong and distinct connection to Estonia for me, because it's a different name.